Thank you. All right, I hereby call the meeting March 5th, 2024 at 7:11 p.m. We'll stand and do the pledge of allegiance. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call. We have all councilors present today. Approval of minutes, city council workshop, February 6, 2024.
I move to approve the minutes of February 6, 2024, city council workshop as presented.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the minutes of February 6th? Having hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? City council regular meeting, February 6, 2024.
I'd like to move to approve the city council meeting, February 6, 2024.
I second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. We'll go to our formal proceedings.
Page C, page 6, 4.
Reminder of supplemental budget public hearings.
Just sit if they are.
Oh.
Yeah, it's the same.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. The public hearing on the 2023-2024 supplemental budget is called to order. Public hearing in this evening will be conducted as follows. We'll have a staff report, public comment on the following order: proponents' comments, opponents' comments, neutral comments, and a rebuttal if anything. And then we will close the public hearing. Comments: if you wish to speak, please fill out a public comment testimony form and submit it to the city recorder. I will recognize those people wishing to speak. Any questions should be addressed through me. Please state both your name and address for the record when you come to the podium as the hearing is being recorded. Please keep your comments concise and to the point. Now I ask the members of the city council to disclose any conflicts of interest. Please indicate the nature and extent of the conflict of interest and indicate whether you intend to participate in or abstain from the hearing. Does anyone wish to abstain? Does anyone in the audience wish to challenge a counselor's impartiality? Staff report. Financial Director Marta Barajas will present the staff report.
Thank you. In front of you, you have your summary that was published in the paper, the notice of supplemental budget. I do want to point out that I did have a misprint for the street reserve. ODOT, so this template is a form from the state and it only has so many, so it was my mistake when you copy and paste to add more of the same formatting to fit all the funds. I did not change the narrative in the street reserve, and so it's a duplicate of the building. So since I'm starting with that correction, I'm kind of starting out of order. But that is the way to correct it. And Councilor Pettigrew, I thank her for pointing that out and giving me time to checking with the state what was the correct process to do that. And so we're starting out with the correction.
Are you gonna tell us what we should put in there?
Yes, that's what I'm gonna say next. So for the street reserve, the correction is that ODOT awarded the city $250,000 out of the small cities allocation for the project of Northwest Columbia Avenue. We've been awarded that grant. That project is anticipated to be, done this fiscal year. And so this allows us to spend the $250,000, that we're gonna get for that grant on that project. And then I'll go, to the top, to the general fund, which is always our busiest fund. We had, a big insurance claim come through, and the insurance company, instead of sending it to the affected entity, they sent it to us, and so we have to funnel it through to the entity, which is still seen as an expense. So, including that in there. We're also having some more general engineering services done, with many of the projects and many of the new reporting requirements, just trying to keep up to date with everything that is ever changing. The original budget also omitted the full amount that is usually budgeted for the police department's equipment line item. And so we're just getting that one in line to what it has been in previous years. We also added an additional police officer, which along with that comes needing an additional patrol car and all of the accessories that come with it, and then paying for the labor that goes with getting everything properly installed by a licensed installer and a fitting. So all of those line items, are included in here. Most of these will be, inter-fund budget transfers, which means we're not asking for more expenses. Some of this has already been put into our contingency, which is the line item that allows us for the what ifs and be able to move it through a process like this to the line items that are now needed, because it's kind of hard to know every single known or unknown that you'll have in the year. And the other one is we're moving some of the funds from our general account or the non-departmental, where it has been assigned to a specific department for capital outlay, and moving some of that to facilities. So anytime our facilities like City Hall or City Park and all of our facilities, if something is in those, they have their own department, also under general fund, but just different departments. So we're just moving some of those monies around. That's why you will see that the total fund requirements is 0. That means we're not increasing what's already in our budget. We're just moving it around. And if any of you have been coming here in the last month or so to City Hall, you've noticed all the construction as our new wing was completed, but now that hallway in between connecting the two is under construction. And with that, we will finally be painting City Hall and replacing the carpet, because this is all the original paint and carpet. And there are some areas that have definitely become a safety issue with our carpet as it starts to pile and tear and so that's all included here. Again, not increasing our, moving them from different departments, different line items. Our next fund is the water fund. That one, Mike Lee's applied for a grant for us for water feasibility study through Business Oregon, and we were granted that grant. And again, we'd like to use it this fiscal year. So that's $20,000. And then as we get closer to our 1 million gallon reservoir going online and analyzing where our accounts lie now and where they could possibly be by the end of this fiscal year, I thought we should add a little bit more to cover some of those utilities, like the electricity that's gonna be needed to fill a 1 million gallon reservoir. Those pumps are gonna be going for quite some time trying to fill that. So those are also included in the supplemental budget. And with the growth, we have had to purchase new water meters constantly, almost like as soon as we order one and we receive it, we're having to put in a second order. We purchase all of those. We do receive back the money when those get installed. But again, it's still an expense. And so in order to have enough in our system, maintenance budget, I'm also increasing that one so that we can provide those water meters and any other parts if we have any repairs for that. So the total increase, because again, I'm moving 83,500 from contingency. So the only increase in the water fund is the $20,000 that are directly tied to the grant. For the sewer reserve, our new lagoon is done and operating. The last piece for that project to be complete is, we actually need to purchase the land that it's on. So finalizing that, and again, we're just moving it from contingency to land acquisition, to be able to get that finalized in this fiscal year. The street reserve I started with first. The building fund is the last one, so luckily our building department has been very busy. And along with that, we have agreements with some of the jurisdictions like Morrow County, where they receive 50% of the permit fees. Where we are now, we'll have what we make those quarterly. We have one more quarter left in this fiscal year to pay those out, and we would not have enough in our current budget to pay out that 50%. And so that is what the 242,000 moving from contingency is for IGA fees.
So, let me ask you a question. Are you saying that our building department has sent to Morrow County $1 million as half of the costs of building fund fees that we've collected? So we collected 2 million. This,
About. I don't know the exact amounts, but yes, pretty close to it. And we also take into account that the winter quarter is kind of the slowest one. So anticipating that this next one is also going to be busier. And we may not have to issue out the full 242,000 plus what we have left, but that's just what we're calculating as a good enough cushion to make sure that we're able to pay those out.
okay.
Any other questions? Is there anyone, any proponents' comments? How about anyone that would like to be an opponent comments? Any neutral comments? And a rebuttal, if any? This hearing is hereby closed. Financial report, January 2024.
Okay, in our January one, which is not gonna be as exciting as our February one. In January, we had a pretty regular month. Again, like I said, the building department has slowed down quite a bit, which is usually our bigger line item. Just because of the winter months and that cold weather, just makes it hard for some of that construction to happen. We, in January, didn't receive much more from our property taxes. The bulk of that came in November and December. So I don't have a lot to report in January, unless somebody has a question there.
The interest rates are very nice.
Yes, they are trying to keep those from climbing much more, and they do anticipate to start seeing reduction in June.
So
I see that we, on our capital projects, that we spent a large amount of money in January. So is that
Yes, phase two is in full gear, which is Rachi is the contractor for that project. Again, I mentioned that 1 million gallon reservoir, that's part of that phase two. So that one is up and going, yeah, that one. If I recall, I think the bid for that one was like 10.2 million.
yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Are we getting close to paying out that job? I mean, I say our money's getting close,
The
or,
phase two, the capital.
yeah, our capital project fund.
I think we're anticipating about the end of this fiscal year to be done. So,
So in millions, how much is that? Is that like 10 more million or 5 more million or?
no, I
Three.
think we're still. I think we're probably still 6.5 to 7.
Okay. Okay.
Anybody else have any comments about January? Or questions?
February, I also left on your, copy of the letter that we received from Craig. And so we received the Craig money, that's why that one made it funner. We did receive, 4 different checks. 5, there was 1%, so I consider it 5 different checks. Which you can't tell by the list that they sent out. The defense manager sent out, I mean, that is everything together. But we did receive 299,000 that is gonna go toward our GO bond. Applying it to the GO bond. Central Urban received 4,406. For being an effective taxing district within the boundaries of one of the Amazon sites. And as a sponsor, we received, 2.2 million.
So you don't have that written down?
No, this is what the enterprise zone manager sent out. But the actual checks were different. We didn't just get one check for the full amount, we got separate checks, so. And then this year, the Press 2 awarded the city of Boardman, along with the other cities in the county, $600,000 for infrastructure projects. So the way to find it on our financials, the 2.2 million as a sponsoring agency is in the general fund. The 600,000 for infrastructure is in the general reserve fund. And the 299,000 for the bond is in the the capital project fund. And then down in the central urban renewal, you have the 4,406.
Can you type that out and send it to us?
Mhm.
So that we know exactly from our sheet where that went? I mean, it's pretty obvious that, maybe the general reserve fund getting 629,000 is where that 600,000 went, but still,
Yes, I can send it to you.
thank you.
Are there any questions about the February financial report?
Well, it'd be great to have that much income more often.
Yes.
I have one question, and it might just be an error.
Okay,
You talked about interest rates. On the February one, it says Bank of EO went down to 0.05%. Is that just a typo?
No, that was on the bank statement.
So it went from 5 to 0.05? Because in January it was 5.
Yeah, I'm gonna call the bank on that one because it is listed as 0.05% on our bank
Okay.
statement.
Okay.
So I'm gonna be calling them to ask them about that.
Oh, I think that's what they're paying.
Well, our
I feel
other
like that's a
one,
big drop in 1 month.
That's a 4.95%.
No, I think it's been that 0.05 for,
Well, it was 5% last month and now it's
I think
0.05.
that's the typo.
That's what I.
no, we've been getting 5%. If you look at the first account, the police, that one is still in that 5%.
That's
Bank of EO,
Yes.
But this other one, yeah, I thought I typed it in wrong and then I looked up at my previous statement that it has changed to 0.05% when it was previously 5%.
Hopefully that's just a typo.
no, because I took out all my money because they won't pay,
Pay interest.
yeah, they want to pay a half of a percent.
That's why I noticed that and I was like, man, that's a big jump in interest rates over a month. That's kind of a big deal.
Everybody take their money out.
Yeah. It's not a money.
So that's how come I know it's 05.
Are there any other comments about the February financials? All right, so we're gonna go to the public comment. We got a great presentation for us. We're gonna start with Sam Boardman Elementary. Something we started at the city, we've invited Sam Boardman, Windy River and the high school to do monthly presentations of what's going on in, I might get a little emotional because my granddaughter gets to do it. But it's pretty cool that we have some kids who are learning how to be involved in their community and at city councils. So Sam Boardman Elementary.
Hello, my name is Melissa Kiefer and I'm a teacher at Sam Boardman Elementary. And I brought some beautiful young ladies to talk to you tonight.
Hello, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Natalie Keefe. My name is Amy Nichols. We would like to invite you to the RSU night at San Boardman Elementary on Wednesday, March 13th, from 5:30 to 7 p.m. During this time, there will be reading, lunches, activities that parents and children will do together. Parents will learn reading activities to do at home with their children. There will be a scavenger hunt, a book, cake walk, and children will get a free book to take home. There will also be pizza for dinner, so please put March 13th in your calendar and join us for a fun literacy night at San Boardman Elementary.
So if you guys would like to volunteer, just give us a call. We have activities that you can volunteer for, reading, you can even serve pizza for us. If it'd be okay to have the girls hand these out to you.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
How do you say no to third graders?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, they've done a great job. Nice job. You can end up with extra flyers, I could take them and help you pass it out. Okay, so that, if you want to do one.
And I can take some of these in the chamber.
So as they're doing this, why don't we give them a big round of applause? I don't know if I could have done that as a third grader. I don't know, that's pretty impressive to me. Super cool. So our next prearranged presentation will be Windy River Elementary. They're kind of pros at it. They've kind of been doing it for 3 or 4 months. So welcome.
Good evening, I'm Bella. I'm Julie, and we're from Windy River Elementary. In February, the student council has been especially busy. ASB successfully held yet another monthly assembly with a guest speaker and exciting mini games. We also held a Valentine's Day themed door decorating contest. Student council also helped with our Read Across America Week dress up day contest by going to each classroom and counting student participation. In March, we plan to do a coin hunt for St. Patrick's Day and hold an assembly before spring break with fun-filled activities, guest speakers, prizes. Thank you for your time.
All right, our next presentation will be Mike Lees with Anderson Perry regarding our capital improvement plan.
You won't break it.
All right, that's a tough act to follow. Yes, I'm Mike Lees with Anderson Perry, and I am the city's, well, I work for Anderson Perry and Associates, and we're the city's engineer of record. And so here to talk to you about the capital improvement plans. We met with the council in September. I know it doesn't seem that long ago, but time flies. The goal was to have the CIP prepared in March, and we're right there. So, just a little background update on the CIP. This was a collaborative effort between your guys' help and the city staff, city leadership and the departments, to identify projects and project priority. So, within the CIP, we identify projects that include projects in the general fund, the water fund, the sewer fund, the street fund, and planning. So the highlights of the CIP and what's important about the CIP is to get council engagement, public engagement, and also that's very important. It's used for budget forecasting and long-range financial planning. And lastly, it can also be used for updating the city's SDCs, system development charges. So what you have in your packet is somewhat of the meat and potatoes of the SDC, which is the tabular formats of each of the projected projects included in the CIP for the prospective funds that we're going to be looking at. So the intent of this meeting isn't to adopt the CIP at the council level. We'll do that at a later meeting. But really, it's just an opportunity for the council to provide input on not just the proposed projects, but also provide input on what you think is a priority. And so, yeah, just let me have it.
Well, I want you to understand, this is one of our only times that we'll get to question the figures and the projects on here. And so I talked to Mr. Hammond today, and he said it was quite all right if we publicly ask questions. And so I've already told Mike, boy, are you in trouble today? So, but if you have questions when you see, and you're wondering why something is that kind of a figure, I want you to question him today, because
this won't be your last opportunity
Yeah.
to provide input on the CIP. And this is just you know, a small portion of the CIP. There's text involved and are included that really goes into an in-depth description of, you know, each of the funds, the projects, the purpose of the CIP. I just gave you the clip notes really of what the CIP was. So you'll have the full opportunity to review the full CIP, which, you know, once we get everybody's buy-in, then it will be prepared, you know, to the council and request adoption at that point in time. So, to kind of expand on that, we intend on having a public meeting or a town hall or Brandon?
Yeah, public meeting, and that's gonna be March 14th at Town Boardman, 6 to 8. So that will be an opportunity again for community input, see the projects that are coming. And the goal of this is a 5-year plan. And the hope is right now to really have that conversation of, hey, from what I've gathered from the input, you guys want to start this here. So really paying attention to the timeline, the dates, that absolutely is very imperative right now.
It's like page 2, Mike. It says 20,000 for this fiscal year and then 20,000 again next year for housing needs analysis. Is that because this fiscal year is coming to a close and we haven't extended the 20 grand? And then why is that just 20 when we're putting 40 into the parks master?
Where are you looking at?
Page 2.
Table 2.
Why didn't you start on table 1?
Because I thought I understood table 1. Do you have a question about table 1 you want to go over first?
I thought he might want to. I'm a little curious on 25, 26. It says surplus the old city shop, and so I'm assuming that's the one uptown.
Correct.
And so we're going, in a couple of years, we can plan on doing something with that.
So the intent on surplus the old city shop.
That was good.
It's tied to completion of the water project and also within the in the water, sewer and street funds is construction of, you know, a new maintenance and storage facility at the property where the water building is. And so it's the intent to delay surplus of that shop until those improvements can be made. And so there's a place to move the stuff that's there into its new home. It's forever.
And so we are planning on spending 440,000 on the green space under the power lines.
And yes, and there's a full project description included in the CIP. And so when you get an opportunity to review that, generally that includes purchase of land for the green space. That includes the clearing and grubbing and earthwork and sprinkler systems and pathways and et cetera to make that a public usable space compared to what it is now.
Okay, thank you. All right, now we can go to page 2.
A question for you on City Jeff. So 25, 26, this is saying we're gonna spend 50,000 on that building to make it.
No, that's just, so in order to surplus the city shop, the old one, there's some infrastructure that needs to be decommissioned. Such as that property has a well on it that it still has water rights associated with it. There's an old diesel powered pump. Need to write an easement, so there's a permanent access easement to the tower. And then there's just, that is an estimate, and so it's kind of tough to throw a wag at something like that.
I was just making sure it wasn't my burden, but 50,000 into it, trying.
That's not the intent of those funds.
Housing needs analysis.
So I'm Yeah, I'm assuming that you know that that only costs 20,000, or I don't know where we got the numbers, where the figures came from.
So we worked closely with Carla on these figures. She's the head of the planning department and she's online. And I'm sure she would love to answer your question. But I can answer one of your questions, which is why is it in 2 fiscal years? And that's because it's intended to start in a certain fiscal year and then end in another. And so you allocate budget in each fiscal year. Like, this is a financial planning tool. So when you see, you know, on other tables, there's other projects that has funds allocated in multiple fiscal years, and that's the reason why.
So I'm sorry, I missed the very first of that. Which piece were you inquiring about?
So we have funds, we have $20,000 allocated for the housing needs analysis. 20,000 in fiscal year 23-24, and 20,000 in fiscal year 24-25.
Right, so in working with the consultant that did the first one, we identified a cost of between $30,000 and $40,000 and a time frame that would start second fiscal quarter or second calendar quarter this year and conclude probably third calendar quarter this year. So it would be over 2 fiscal years.
It's all I'm asking about on that topic.
Okay, move on to table 3. This is the water project summary. Another note on the water. So something you'll notice similar between the water, sewer, and street funds is there's duplicate projects included each one of those funds, and the reason for that is those costs are distributed, you know, sometimes equally amongst those funds. So, for example, well, Columbia Avenue Northwest improvements is included in water, sewer, and streets. That's because we're replacing the water line and we're replacing the sewer line, and then we're also doing road work. So we're allocating funds in capital improvement plan to go towards the applicable fund that those funds will come out of.
So we anticipate spending $1.3 million in 2023, 2024 on Columbia Avenue Northwest.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that project's bid on Thursday. And the bids came in pretty well. The apparent low bid, we haven't issued a notice of award yet, but the apparent low bid is Silver Creek at a bid price of $1.289 million.
For what job is that?
Oh, yeah.
Northwest. Would you repeat that number, 2.1?
1.289.
1.289.
Plus or minus.
Wow, that's very close.
Yeah, and that was under our engineer's estimate of 1.435.
Okay.
And Mike, because it's listed under the fiscal year 23-24, we're anticipating it would get done by this year.
Yes. So the contract duration, I believe, is 120 days. So the majority of the funds will be expended by the time fiscal year 24-25 starts. If not, we're hoping that it gets completely wrapped up before July 1.
Where is that gonna end on Columbia Avenue? Since they're connected with Boardman, where does that end? Just a rough
So if
idea.
you're familiar with the road
I am.
at all, there's basically right at the horseshoe, if you wanna call it that. There's a section of new pavement.
And that's where it's gonna end.
That's where the city ended the project back in 2004,
Mhm.
which replaced the water line in Boardman Avenue, and they did an overlay on Boardman Avenue.
Okay.
From that point, I guess it would be east. But yeah, that's where the project
And
is.
is it gonna start where the apartments are at the beginning of Northwest Columbia Avenue?
The connection to the existing water line is gonna be to the east of Old Main Street.
Oh, so almost to the main intersection.
Yes.
Okay,
That's-
gotcha.
Any other questions on table 3 for the water fund?
So your only hope, think it's gonna be 120 days, that's the plan?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm down to the W 5.0, maintenance and storage shop. So
Yes.
what is it, is that the new one? What is that?
That would be a
Just tell
new
me.
building,
Down at the,
the new public works headquarters.
so now they're building, oh, the reservoir.
They're building the reservoir, they've got the water booster pump station.
That's what they're building.
Yeah,
Okay, and so now then you are gonna build a maintenance shop similar to the one we already have.
yes,
Is that what I'm thinking?
yes, it'll be conditioned. So, for instance, you can park the back truck in there.
Yeah.
And it won't freeze. You could have a heated space to work on things in the wintertime. There's other things that need to be conditioned. So it's just a spot to store stuff and work on stuff and
And so that will be in all of the funds, water, sewer.
correct.
Oh, this is the one with the loader. I knew I
Correct.
was gonna get to these. Okay, tell me about the loader.
It is a loader.
Tell me about the loader.
The estimated prices, that is not a new loader. That's,
You mean 70 times 3
yes,
is not a new loader?
that is not a new loader. Well,
So somewhere in there, there should be like a sand shed or something?
Oh, yeah, that's a, oh, no, that's a no. Oh, so you need a loader to load into the sand shed.
Yes. So in the winter, all that sand we put on the road, we haul from Marion with a 5-yard dump truck and a 2-yard dump truck. So a little further down, you see the dump.
I know, I seen the 10-yard because that was my
Which
next
is not
question.
new either, and, you don't need the manual for what we're using it for, but the loader would be, so you're not using your backhoe to push sand up in that sand shed and there's nothing on it, and you want to push a lot of sand, you should have a loader. And we also use that backhoe to load the trucks in here again. In the summer when we're hauling the sand.
Yeah.
Doesn't cost much more to drive a 10-yard dump truck than it does a 5-yard dump truck. And the labor's no more for sure.
Make fewer
We're
trips.
using that, and then let's, I mean, we spend a lot of time out there trying to, let's dump chunks of frozen sand in the winter, that's sand shed. So, that all goes together.
A loader would help with the busting up too, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
Well, one of the purposes for the sand shed is to keep the sand dry.
right.
Currently, the city tarps the sand pile.
And that part gets holes in it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's still got stuff in there.
It's holes in it, it's also, the wind never blows in Boardman. And so when the tarp is being removed or put back on, it has, some safety concerns associated with it, so.
Yeah, we've had a couple, or at least one injury, I don't know, not recently, but When they slipped and fell on that part in the winter last, a year ago anyway.
The only positive thing I seen on here was the back truck. Okay.
Could you explain why the water fund is only paying 20K for the 10-yard dump truck and the other two funds are paying more? Probably. But it shouldn't all be all the sewer either.
Right, when we're looking at equipment or which fund is gonna pay for what, we also look at kind of percent of the time, how much is this fund, or how much of this equipment gonna be used in the water fund versus sewer fund versus street? And so we try to proportion that out so that it kind of matches as best as possible. So it's not, that's why it's not everything just a split, 1/3 each way and be done. We really try to look at how much usage is it gonna have in each different area and then have the fund pay for its fair share of the cost.
So the sewer fund would use twice as much as the water fund?
On what,
On the dump truck.
on the dump truck?
It's probably just.
Yes, it's just a yes.
Okay,
Depends on where you have the problems.
I see, okay. Are there any more questions?
I'm done with page 3. You can see, we've not seen these before. Right now is the first time we've gotten to look at these.
I saw it Friday when it came across me.
Well, okay, this week, but you haven't had time to go look at it or come in and talk to people. I did too, I've got these notes.
Yeah.
Okay, page 4. It looks just about like page 3, other than the on-site sodium hypochlorite system. And I would say that's, okay, that's at the wastewater, so that's up at the lagoon.
Correct, and that's used for disinfection.
Yeah.
Of the water that's applied to Circle 52. That's the current on-site chlorine generation system was installed back in 2001. And it is obsolete, so you can't buy replacement parts for it. And so we are going to cannibalize the on-site chlorination generation system at the water building when we put in the new one for the water project. And in hopes to, you know, get a few more years out of the wastewater chlorine generation system. And then eventually it'll just need replaced because you can't buy parts for it.
Okay, and I see we have a big here under, you call it headwork screen and septic receiving station.
And it's food biosolid. Removal. And these weren't part of the recent geo bonds that
They're
were
not.
done. Separate, like maintenance, would this be considered maintenance or?
So the biosolids removal was identified in the city's wastewater facilities plan. And it's just been, it's filled up with solids over the years. The way the city's wastewater system works is anything you flush goes into the lagoon number one. And it's the nature of the lagoon, it accumulates solids. Anything that just doesn't break down any further and, you know, is able to be land applied, accumulates in the lagoon. And it's pretty phenomenal that it's gone this long without being, cleaned out. And so it would be considered a maintenance item for the wastewater system. But it's not gonna be something that's gonna be done again for a number of years. And
Do you anticipate like 10 years, 20 years, 30 years?
Well, the headwork screen is going to assist a lot with, removing the inorganics and garbage that goes into the lagoons.
Okay.
And so next time you do have to remove the biosolids, they'll be able to be land applied on the land application site. And so that will reduce the cost of those biosolid removal significantly. Because currently the biosolids are filled with garbage. And, there's approximately like 60,000 yards of biosolids that need to be removed from lagoon number one. And all of that has to go to the landfill. So next time you have to do it, you'll have the headwork screen, functioning, and that will prevent or prohibit garbage from entering in there. And then you just have to work with the state, the DEQ, and, get a, biosolids, sorry. Yeah, basically a land application of biosolids permit through DEQ, and then you can land apply those, so.
60,000 yards.
Well, and remember when we were looking up the bond, you know, it was cheaper to build a new lagoon than it was to have this cleaned while it was wet. So we built the new lagoon and are letting number one dry out, so it's dry, and then we can go in and take out and let it dry and do whatever DEQ says we have to do with it. So you're planning on, and this would be pretty sudden after we open the new lagoon, to add that headwork screen business up there.
Yeah, the headwork screen, so it's kind of a two-step process. We're doing equipment procurement. So we're procuring the actual screen itself, and then we'll design the headworks around the screen that we procure.
Okay.
And so it's more efficient from a design standpoint to do it that way. And then you already own the equipment that's gonna get installed. And then to speak on the biosolids removal, yes, we went forth with constructing the fourth lagoon, in lieu of wet dredging, lagoon number one, which is approximately a 30% savings on what you see here. So if you wanted to wet dredge it, it would be about, $1.5, $1.7 million to wet dredge that. So considering we have the additional capacity with the new lagoon, we can take lagoon one out of commission and dry it up and remove those solids with just equipment. So it's significantly less cost.
Well, I think the important thing, another important thing too is like you said, what, 2001 is when it was last?
The lagoon?
Yeah, so the 60,
1979.
okay, so 1979, we're looking at almost, what, 45 years before we've had to do anything, and we look at the cost or whatever.
Never done it.
Yeah, that's a cost over 45 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the figures look big, but it's a 45-year cost. I mean, you break it down, it's very minimal. So,
And these will only be in the wastewater.
Correct.
Is there a,
I'll have to look for them somewhere.
Correct.
in the interest of time, I don't wanna belabor this, but is there a headwork screen and subject receiving station on the lagoon that's currently acting as lagoon one?
Yeah.
So it's going to be filling up with the biosolids and garbage simultaneously until lagoon one can come back online?
No.
Oh,
thinking that-
you know,
You're asking if we're gonna do this.
Well, what I'm saying is when you put lagoon one back on, you're gonna be putting in the headwork station, right?
Yeah.
But the current one, while lagoon one's drying out, doesn't have a headwork station on it. So it's receiving garbage and biosolids simultaneously.
Yep.
Yes, we never have.
It's already got covered in it anyway.
But you're going, aren't you gonna put okay, where's the headwork screen gonna be? Because you're not gonna wait the couple of 3 years. You're gonna put that screen on so that whatever we're putting in there now is being screened, aren't you?
Yeah, the headwork screen project is the same year as the biosolid removal. So it's gonna occur
Are you gonna
within the
put it,
same year.
I don't care about the same year, I wanna know the same space. Are you gonna put it, you know, when that's water, the sewer comes in, it comes in one,
Karen, so apparently the lagoon two already has garbage in it. That's where the water will go when we dry out. So it'll go where it's already garbage. Lagoon one gets cleaned out, then we'll have the headworks in place before we start putting water back in it.
okay.
So it'll stay clean.
So you're gonna try to keep Lagoon one clean. You're gonna go ahead and let Lagoon two start filling.
Right.
Okay, got it.
So Lagoon one's clean, Lagoon four is clean.
And, I mean, there's not gonna be a lot of solids and garbage deposited in lagoon number two within the time frame of when the headwork screen is installed and the time we start putting water in lagoon two. So it's this very small snapshot, if you look at it, you know, in the realm of, you know, lagoon one's been accepting solids since 1979, so.
And just a reminder that this septic receiving has been on our project for a long time. We are just, it has now changed, but how long, I mean, it was.
Well, the project really morphs. It was intended initially just to be a septic receiving station. And to do a septic receiving station right, you should screen the solids that come from septic haulers. And it didn't make sense to have a septic receiving station with a screen when you're sending all of your influent from the city into Lagoon One without a screen. And so in lieu of just having a septic receiving station with a screen, we elected to install headworks with a septic receiving station. So you can not only screen the septic hauling waste, but you can also screen all the influent that comes in from the city. So much more efficient use of the funds and a great project for the city.
Thank you. I'm ready for table five.
Looks good.
All right, on table five.
So the Northeast Columbia Avenue, Wilson Road, Union Pacific Railroad overpass. Is that a driving overpass, the walking overpass?
So that is just a project limit. So we start at Olson Road and then you end it at basically the city limits, which is the UPR overpass. When you head down Columbia Avenue towards East Beach.
Okay.
So that's just a project limit. It's putting bounds on the project. So that project includes just restoration of Columbia Avenue from Olson to the UPR overpass.
Yeah.
Boardman Avenue and North Main Street, that would be the stoplight.
Correct.
Well, it gives us a plan. It actually has numbers to it now. I think that's kind of a sticker shock for some people. But we talked about plans and now we have numbers to it.
Yep, and in this street fund, or excuse me, the street projects. So we recently completed the pavement evaluation study. Included in that study was the identification of what it needs, what the city needs to put forward to maintain just their existing streets. And so we use, you know, that study, it kind of complements the CIP. And so we're using a study in a study, I guess you could say. And so, I guess that pavement evaluation study is very helpful for the CIP in identifying projects, not just within the next 5 years, but beyond that. So we'll look at, other projects that are included in that, pavement evaluation study to include in future projects in future CIP updates.
Yeah, this process is a 2-year reevaluation. So every 2 years, we reevaluate for the next 5 years, 2 years.
So the CIP document it's expected to just keep growing. As you check projects off, they'll go in the appendix. But also, the CIP will be helpful for public engagement and posting pictures on the city's website of, where these funds are being allocated and what good, the city's doing for the community.
Absolutely.
Well, I know the old CIP program that we had, it's pretty amazing when you look back at the things we've accomplished, and you're going, oh, gosh, I forgot we did that. It's nice to know these things.
And that actually, Karen, that brings up something that we will do. So, Amanda's gonna be building the website moving forward, but we're gonna go back.
Oh.
So we'll be able to,
We can
capture all
remember.
those things that we've been done. So we'll be touching, reaching out.
So another question more or less, but no, we brought up for a thing. PD is not in any of this.
Correct.
And just in general, project summaries or the whole thing, in 5 years, we might need a new police station or a bigger one. So why would that not be terrible to be added in here?
It very well could be added. This is a living document, and that's the intent of updating this thing every couple of years. And it's supposed to, the intent is to capture big capital investment projects. So if there is, a big investment project such as, PD expansion, then by all means, it should be included. But one of the uses of the CIP is for development of system development charges. So when you look at a system development charge, there isn't a PD system development charge. And so it's not necessarily, that's just one component of the CIP. You generally look at water, sewer, street, and parks. And being that the PD operates on their own budget, they kind of manage their own money.
And I get that, but it seems like at the end of the day, they're gonna come back here and be like, hey, we need to go.
Correct.
Right, it's not gonna be coming out of very normal, but.
Correct.
So that's where I was getting.
So you're asking for to add that? There is a section in the very back, and you'll see this. There's been discussion of the shooting range forever, indoor shooting range. So that is in the very end of this.
Yeah, and the appendix, the appendix is not only there for completed projects, but it's also for anticipated projects.
See, I think personally, I don't know, it's something I would want to throw in there, and if we have money in the next 5 years, that some of it is growing the police department.
Yeah.
Because it's gonna, if the city's gonna grow, it's gonna continue to grow, so that's my thought. So,
Okay.
I don't know, I would be able to do it.
Noted.
Yep. And we can put that in.
We're ready. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, appreciate your time.
So we are gonna take a 5-minute break. And we're just gonna pause the meeting for 5 minutes while we do a potty break. Yeah. All right, so we're gonna go back into session, resume our session. And we have a prearranged presentation by Stephen Fuss, Boardman rent report.
Hello, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Stephen Fuss. You guys all know me because I'm here a lot. Anyway, I'm here to update you guys on the sort of citizens' view of the rent situation in Boardman. The process for this report is that I literally just Googled everything. I did a search, wrote it down, put it into charts, made it all creative for you. So this really is just a citizen's view of what it looks like when you're looking at moving into Boardman and renting in Boardman. I didn't include like buying houses because I am not an expert at that, and that is a lot more work than I personally am willing to do, if I were to be completely honest with you. So if you flip to page 3 and look at the first chart, this is a chart of the rental complexes as well as a few rental houses that are available here in Boardman. In total, there are about 15, with the ones having the most availability being Portview Apartments and Tidewater Apartments. And the most available type of bedroom being the 2-bedroom. Now, looking at these prices, we can see that a lot of these either have no availability or they are determined by family size or income because they are low income apartment complexes. And then you look at Portview's apartments and you see their starting apartment for a studio is $1,145,000. Wild. And then you look at Tidewater Apartments, their 1-bedroom starts at $1,400. Also wild. Because, for example, a 2-bedroom for one of the housing complexes, which are, or not housing complexes, but just housing units, which are the last 4 of that chart, that 2-bedroom is going for $650, and a 1-bedroom house is going for $385. Renting. With more space, more backyard, potentially utilities included. However, in this data, most utilities are not included because if we are looking at Portland for an example of a definition of affordable housing, which is really the end goal of this presentation, it says that utilities cannot be included if they are paid to a third-party provider. For example, Portview, and I'm going to assume Tidewaters because they are managed by the same management company, would be Umatilla Electric Co-op for its electricity and Blue Mountain Network for its internet. So we cannot include utilities in these numbers. If you go to the next chart, the median income, fair market rent, and median rent for Boardman over time. In 2023, last year when I gave this presentation, the median income for a household, so multiple people, was, in 2022, because the 2023 numbers had not been calculated yet, was $60,911. And it's gone up to $62,545, a marked increase, which is exciting. We are growing, our people are making more money, exciting. Now, for an individual, this number was a little bit harder to find, so I only could go up to 2021, which is a $700 increase to $31,700 from 2020. Fair market rent in 2023 was $716. For 2024, it's gone down to $708, also exciting. And then for a 2-bedroom, it's gone from $943 to $915. Median rent has also decreased for a 2-bedroom, going from $1,032 to $1,020. Yet it's increased only by $5 from $784 to $789 for a 1-bedroom. Now, if we look at the Portview rent over time, which is the next chart, you'll see that in 2020, 2021, it went up 15%. And then in 2021 to 2022, it went up 21%. Then it sort of stabilized in 2023, going down at 0.08%, and is advertising around the same current when I did this report. For a 2-bedroom, it's between 2021 and 2022, also a 15% increase, then a minus 12 decrease for the rent, and then it's staying stable where they're advertising it for this year so far. Those numbers will probably change in September when the new cost of living increase and rent protection stuff comes out, because that's when those numbers happen. Speaking of rent protection, The state already has rent protections in the FORS 90, which was amended by Senate Bill 611 most recently. And they are that an apartment complex cannot increase their rent more than 8% or the cost of living plus 7% depending on, or it's either 7 or 3% depending on which is the lesser of two numbers. And so, sorry to jump back to the first chart. You can see that most of our complexes in Boardman do not fall under those protections because they are not 15 years from the date of their first tenancy. We won't see Tidewater fall under these unless they get amended until the late 2030s. If you go to page 5, the next chart explains Courtview annual rent versus median average income for Boardman. To swing back to that Portland definition of affordable housing, affordable housing cannot take up more than 30% of a person's income. If you look at the 1, 2, 3, 4, fourth column, well, third and fourth column, you'll see that for one bedroom, Courtview Apartments has been well over that 30% threshold of annual income compared to their one bedroom rent. And then for the household, it sits slightly around a quarter of their income, 25%. For a 2-bedroom, these numbers jump to over 50% for an individual, and then sit around 30% for the household. So they are exceeding or just barely under that definition of affordable housing. And Tidewaters, because they're more expensive, are not going to fall under that definition based on these numbers alone that Courtview is having. And then the next chart, this is a new chart compared to last year. It's the minimum wage for non-urban areas versus properties managed by affinity property management companies, rent. And so you can see that the minimum wage from 2020 to 2024 has increased by $2 from $11.50 to $13.50, and will continue to rise. But this income based on this rent, and if they're only working a 40-hour work week, is taking over 50% of their income just on rent. And just as a reminder, the physical box they live in, no lights, no running water, no pets, no garage, no nothing. Just the box that they live in. Imagine a dark room with all of us just standing, no chairs, no nothing. 50% of their income is going just to the place they live. No, not their car bills, not their student loans, not anything else, just rent. So why is this important? This is important because it impacts our city widely. It impacts our marginalized communities, our migrant communities, because as they start to work and they're looking at these prices of potentially getting a nice rental or moving their family out of the place where they live with 3 or 4 other families, because we do have families who do that in our city. As a teacher, I see that very often. We have to report it under the McKinney-Vento Act, saying that we are aware of students who are homeless, who are living with other families. And these prices at these places do not allow these families to move out and get their own space so those families can grow and support themselves. It also impacts our homeless community. You guys, based on the mandate that was given by the state government, have to have a plan in place in order to either move the homeless people to a shelter or have a shelter built in our town. You guys have not built the town, shelter in our town yet. I'm very hopeful that you guys eventually do. But affordable housing will help once that's built or once those processes are in place, because once the homeless people go to these shelters and get the support they need to get their life back on track by their own choices, they will have a goal and an affordable goal that they can work to that will encourage them. Because right now in our climate as a country, and just my personal lived experience, I don't have much hope of buying a house in our city. I don't have much hope of potentially staying here and finding a cheaper place to rent. Which means I'm gonna have to leave a community that I love, students that I love, people that I love. And I don't wanna do that. And I wanna address some of the comments made at the last city council meeting. I appreciate Councilman Prophet going to that, workshop about affordable housing and how we can start building it. Mr. Rockwell, I understand that you guys are not, you guys are individuals, yes, but you as a city are an entity, a singular entity. And as citizens, you are also the most accessible and available place that we can come with our problems to talk to you guys and hope that you either listen or do something, or do both, listen and do something. Because I can't go to these big corporations that I'm talking about here and be like, hey, you guys are screwing us over. No, I'm coming to you to comment on something that was made last year when I did this presentation. Yes, I understand that putting in rent protections would be messing with businesses. However, you guys do that all the time when you sell permits, liquor licenses, all of that sort of stuff. You are messing with businesses. And this has more positive outcomes than negative outcomes. The negative outcomes happen if you don't do anything now. It's going to get worse until it gets better. And this is the stuff that makes it better. On page that I've listed a lot of places that have already placed these rent protections in their government. California, specifically Los Angeles, City Code Chapter 15, Oakland, City Code Chapter 8.22, New York City, Title 26, Chapter 3, Oregon Senate Code 611, Portland City Code Chapter 30, Eugene Ordinance 20694. So, and last year and this year, I've provided a few of those with the packet that I gave you. So you have those examples in front of you in order to model off of them. Because the best ideas are stolen and then reworked. You don't have language because that's plagiarism, but as a teacher, one of my big training figures are stolen. And I'm giving you this as a solution. Steal this so that we can help our citizens and the homeless people and the migrant community and the people that are going to be more affected by this than people who own homes, than like a person of my complexion, a white person. So yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fuss. There's a lot to think about on that. I think it's not getting easier. I think that's why I have a son that still lives in my house.
Exactly.
Hopefully someday. Hopefully someday. We'll move on to our prearranged presentation, Nation Wildfire, excuse me. Missing Middle Housing Fund.
Yeah. That was probably the best segue I could have asked for. Thank you. Yeah. We're gonna make this a little taller. Hi, thanks for having me. I appreciate everything you're doing. I used to work for a city in Vermont for 4 years, and I've been in about 700 city council meetings. And so I have a great appreciation for how late you stay to do this sort of stuff. Thanks for what you do. Thanks for Brandon for inviting me. Appreciate it. This is a little PowerPoint I prepared for all of you to check out. So Steven's not, what he's showing you isn't unique to Boardman. We're about 150,000 units short across all of Oregon. I run the Missing Middle Housing Fund, which is a statewide nonprofit that is obsessed with our housing under production in Oregon. When we don't create enough housing, the cost of everyone's housing goes up. And of course, that impacts our communities in terms of our workforce, the folks who make the least incomes in our communities, and this increasingly our employers who now identify housing as the biggest barrier to hiring and retaining talent. At best, the state of Oregon makes about 20,000 each year. We're going to build 13,000 this year, about roughly across the whole state. That's every single type of housing. We work with developers, housing entrepreneurs, innovators, cities, and employers to bring you this type of data. As you probably have seen from the governor, she wants to increase housing production by 80% year over year. We've been saying 100% for 3 years, so we're going a little bolder and bigger. Can you click to the next one, please? So this is us. We believe in what we do, but we're mostly working with doers. So we tend to work with developers, housing innovators. Innovation happens across materials, how you build things, how you design things, how you fund things. We believe there's no silver bullet to how you make housing more affordable and faster in your communities. And so we have to look for innovations of all kinds to try to reduce that cost. Unfortunately, there's no giant pile of money sitting out there anywhere for us to just build our way out of this crisis, though that would be great. Doesn't exist. So generally what we do is we help cities and groups of stakeholders think differently about housing is built. Everybody wants to measure success by the number of units produced. We measure success by how you do that. Are you changing how housing actually happens in your community? Or are you roughly doing the same thing we've done for about 120 years in most of Oregon's communities? Next slide, please. So everybody's got their own boogeyman for why housing takes so long and costs so much, and they're all right. Everybody thinks their boogeyman is the most right. I'm here to disabuse you of that notion, please. But they're all correct. If we are to double our housing production in Oregon, we're going to be short 13,000 hammer swingers. We don't know where those folks are coming from. So we have to think about how we build housing differently. Are there pre-manufactured components? Are there different ways to build it in the factory? Ship it to a place that has less contractors than others around the state. These exist, and we'll get to what that means. Is there new ways to train tomorrow's workforce? If you ask any local developer, why does it take so long? They mostly point at you. They're going to say red tape, regulations, and they're going to be right. They're not going to be any more right than the lack of 13,000 construction workers, but they're going to be right. Our regulatory environment causes significant burden. I work a lot with 10 cities in Yamhill County right now. Their average turnaround time for permitting, for zoning permit is 18 weeks. And they think that's deplorable. And I giggle a little bit because Boardman is 2 years. If you ask any national developer what the problem is, they're gonna giggle when you tell them it's regulations and red tape, because they say it's the same in Des Moines as it is in Boise, as it is in New York City, as it is in Boardman. We have to deal with red tape everywhere. Our problem is we can't get financing, particularly for workforce housing, that middle income, which is why we have our name, Missing Middle Housing Fund. There is no such thing as a revolving fund of capital to build workforce housing. There's no bank that will give you that loan. There's no equity that comes in to fuel the housing needed by folks at Boardman Foods, or at Northwest Beef, or at Tillamook Creamery, or your employees, or your teachers. There is no source of. And then last, it's all the fun stuff, right? Products, design, assembly. It's making your homes out of geopolymer building blocks, containers. It's how do you build with a new supply chain? How do you do cross-laminated timber like they're building in Portland's new airport terminal? These are all the fun stuff, right? Problem is no one knows how to build it. Nobody will fund it. And usually it's illegal. So all those boogeymen are correct. Change, next one, please. So right now around the state, luckily, there's innovation happening everywhere we look, which is pretty great. We started helping the 6th largest of employers in Newburgh about a year ago. That's like George Fox University, the school district, the city, Friendly Retirement, huge manufacturer called ADEC. You get the idea. And all of those different folks started out as pretty significant skeptics about how they housing in their community. And of course, it's now they're kind of fighting each other about who gets to go first and do the first project and build on their land and how much can they help, how much can they help? So it's, employers are really important to this equation and how they can contribute and lead. Because too often we sort of just point the finger at that city and county and state boogeyman and expect you to do miracles with very limited tools. Your employers have a lot of tools at their disposal, as does everyone else I mentioned. Santiam Canyon is where Ferris Brothers Timber is located. So they're a huge timber producer for the state, but but 3,000 of their housing units burned 4 years ago. And so they have a very significant housing shortage, so we're about to start helping them. On Thursday, I give this presentation to the Tillamook Housing Commission, Tillamook County Housing Commission. They have a pretty significant challenge right now because over 60% of their housing units are second homes, especially along the coast. And so those are not homes that people can move into to work. Ben's a nightmare. And so you get the idea. Community colleges are one of our big drivers, actually. The folks that are working there and going to school there are middle income. And so they're a key landholder, a key educator. They're a big part of our solution set. If you go on our website tonight, you will see that in late January, we released our case study on our work done in Newburgh over the last year. I would encourage you to check that out. I think it has a lot of good lessons for not just your community, but the rest of the state. We've learned some pretty interesting things there. Next slide, please. Here's just an example of some of the employers that we've worked with that are taking matters into their own hands. And it's because they're desperate. If you were wondering, by the way, what the #2 barrier to hiring and retaining a workforce is right now, it's childcare. So it's not, can you make the best cheese? It's not, can you make the best beef? It's not, can you teach our children the best or care for our sick? Housing is your biggest barrier to booming. Next one, please. Innovators, these are logos, so they're not gonna mean a whole lot to you, but Autodesk makes AutoCAD. So that's a software used by almost every architect and engineer now across the country. We actually are located in their office, which is pretty cool, by the way. The logo up on the far left, that's Humankind Homes. They make homes out of geopolymer building blocks. They look like cinder blocks. You can build a house in 6 weeks with 6 people. It all gets shipped onto your site. It's the same material your Roman aqueducts are made out of, so they stand the test of time and they're fireproof. Alpha Ledger, which is in the middle, all they do is municipal bonding. So it's not quite as sexy, but it's just as important. What is the cost to put in fire, roads, water, fiber? That's a significant cost, right? The next one over, the little weird polyhedron thing, that's Urban Form. They are now, they have a proposal in front of the 10 mayors of Yamhill County to take that 18-week zoning permit turnaround time from 18 weeks to a day, using artificial intelligence to go through your zoning codes. They don't change your zoning code, they don't approve it, they just make it super clear what it is to everyone, so you don't have to do this a million times through a big book. There's big dogs out there too, Ferris and Walsh. Walsh is the 3rd largest affordable housing builder in the Pacific Northwest. And they figured out a way to cut 20% out of building affordable housing. So these are just examples of some of the innovators out there. I would contend your challenge is to get them here. How do you get those innovators to come to help you in Boardman? Next slide, please. These are just some fun ones. I apologize to the folks online because I'm gonna go point literally at stuff, but I'll yell real loud. I got a big voice. The one on the far left, these are, this is Quantum Assembly. They make housing out of metal panels in a factory in Portland. and then ship it on site and put up a house in 2 days. They look better than any place I've ever lived in on the inside. This is just an example of ADUs, how you can actually build density in your community without having to build a new primary house or come up with new land. This is mod PDX. This is, they're just building housing in a factory and then they ship it here on a truck. This is shipping container conversions. That's one of the humankind home houses that we call our building blocks. Pretty cool stuff, but I would just remind you, sometimes the cool stuff is how you fund it, and it's the infrastructure too. Next slide, please. And increasingly, folks around the country are trying to do this too. My hometown is Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I used to live in Vermont. The CHIPS Act is probably the biggest outlay our federal government will make in decades. It'll be tens of billions of dollars to build semiconductor plants. There's no plan for housing any of the humans that will live in them. So we'll have to build housing fast or we won't make any chips. So these are just examples of other innovators. Next slide, please. You know, we like to say there's no silver bullets for this problem, but there might be silver buckshot. And so if you take enough shots and you try enough things, you start to hit the spaghetti sticks against the wall, right? I'm mixing a lot of metaphors. Bullets and spaghetti don't go together, but you get the idea. You gotta try a lot of things and you're gonna fail a lot, like maybe even half the time, because innovation is messy. But that's really how you figure out how to actually bend the curve and create new housing. Right now, we kind of just do it the same way we've always done it, which is why we're about 150,000 units short in Oregon. If you're counting, we're about 6 million units short across the United States. So this is an all hands on deck kind of moment. Last slide. So I've been out here twice to speak with some of your employers, and I asked them the last time we were all in a meeting down at the port. I said, okay, well, how many humans right now have a terrible housing situation or you can't hire because there's not enough housing units in Boardman? This is what I was told. County, about 25. I shouldn't say this in front of you, Boardman Foods, but Boardman Foods said 40. School district said 40 to 50. Northwest Beef said 20. Your city said 5. The port, 30 to 40 units. Tillamook Creamery, 25. 3 Mile, 30 to 40. We added those up. That was 250 units just right now. That's with no growth. That's just right now. They think we're about 250 units short where they could hire to that amount. To the best of my knowledge, I don't think this city has asked employers to step forward in that type of way before. I could be wrong. That's just what I've been told. I see a lot of cities across Oregon. I work for many of them. You guys are weird in a good way. You have so many jobs here. You don't have very much housing, but you have a lot of resources that a lot of cities don't. You have some city leadership that I think is kind of unique. You have folks that are willing to think outside the box, which is a little bit different. I'm a nonprofit, so, you know, the more cities we help, we unfortunately get paid the same. But it's pretty exciting when we try to meet our mission of bringing innovation to cities across the state and helping you think differently about approaching this seemingly intractable problem. I'll close with this. While you are really cool and weird in a good way, you are not unique. This problem is the same in Eugene as it is here. I was in Astoria yesterday. I'll be in Tillamook along the coast on Thursday. Bend is really struggling. Klamath Falls, Medford, Phoenix and Talent, they had 3,000 units burn in a day. They still haven't been built back. Our state actually is still growing. And some of our cities like yours are booming. But we are not keeping pace with building housing. And the impacts of that are felt in a report that you just heard. But it's pretty acute across all of our families, and of course, across the employers that drive our economy. I think that's all I'm here to tell you. Yeah.
And I just wanted to add, so the boots on the ground, so, Mr. Graham came tonight, he had to go return to work representing Tillamook, again, all in. Mrs. Brady is here representing Boardman Foods, again, all in, being a partner. Mr. Scheimer, I believe, is online, representing the rec district, again, all in as a partner. Mr. Comey, superintendent of the school district, he had a prior engagement, and I literally had it like, no, you don't have to come. I mean, again, all in. What I am asking for this is your willingness to move forward. I need, as a council, to say, yep, we would like to proceed. Now, based on our conversation, the missing middle, it is just a little step at a time. We can pull out at any instance we don't feel comfortable. But there are some things in process at the state level that I would love to take advantage of some of these funds coming out. Having a plan in place is great. And again, we have employers that are saying, we need this now. I didn't know if any counselors who have attended this want to share.
I enjoyed hearing that because, you know, I've been a firm believer that innovation is what's gonna drive these type of things. And so when I hear about all the different ways that houses can be built, that's interesting. And I don't see why Boardman couldn't be at the forefront of that, at least in our area. You know, it sounds like we may have land available. We have employers that are, you know, we have people that are in need. I mean, I've lived here for a long time. Housing has been a problem for a long time. And it's gonna continue to be a problem, and it's only moving at a faster pace. And we need to try and get ahead of it the best we can while we can, you know, so.
I feel like there are a lot of things the city could do, given the land, that seems like a real obvious one, but the less sexy version is to get into the planning portion and look at the codes and what it takes to put in some tiny homes and make some little cottage communities is part of what we need to do from our planning side to be able to even build some of the homes and things that Nathan talks about. So I feel like I'm all in, I'm interested, I wanna improve the situation in our town. I got on the council, I don't know, Karen, maybe you remember, a long time ago, because I didn't want any more low-income housing. And this will come kind of as a shock, and maybe you can remember this, but we would start a year as a school teacher with 25 kids. And if we ended the year with even 8 of those being the same kids we started in September with, that was remarkable. Because we had so many transient families. And migrants, transient, moving and following production and agriculture. And we only had low-income housing. It was like an inner city school in rural Oregon. It was just shocking how hard it was to teach. So I got on the council to just say no more low-income housing. We need stationary, stick-built homes with people who plan to live here and raise a family. But I think that we're at a spot where we have a substantial supply of that, or not a substantial supply, but enough that we could introduce and inject some middle-income housing, because that's the area where we're just really weak, really weak.
I wanted to add, I have been seeing a lot of the innovation that's coming out with the homes that can be shipped and is essentially unfolded and built within a very short period of time. I think on our end, what I see, that's where we may need some assistance with consulting, is that those are not taken, purchased, and then rented at high prices, right? Where we end up with the same situation. I think that that's where we need to take a look at some of those details as well.
Yeah, that was my biggest sticking point is making sure that if we bring something in, it is not for somebody else to gobble up and turn into high price rentals or rentals in general. They need to be bought by people that are gonna stay here. That would be my biggest selling point.
Yeah.
Or maybe do an Airbnb.
Yes, yeah, I don't want that.
Yeah, if you, basically you build at the pace you're building now, that is always a possibility, because it's just supply and demand.
Yeah.
If you fill the gap that you have, your supply and demand curve changes pretty significantly. That's, you know, we're obsessed with pace and scale, to be transparent with you. Because the pace that we are building across Oregon and the scale is insufficient. And because of that, I think when I got a tour of your community about 45 days ago, some of the houses for sale were in the high 400s. And we heard about the incomes being earned right now. I wrote them down. Thank you, Stephen. That would easily gobble up well over 30% of your income, which is the federal definition of cost burden. So I hear your concerns, but those will be real if you build it at the same pace.
Can I ask, so what rent raise or payment are you looking for? And are we trying to build a house that my payment will be $850? I mean,
So that's really based on your community's income. So the missing middle, workforce housing has a federal definition.
Right.
And it's based on 80% of area median income to 120% of area median income. That's, by the way, the type of housing that is built least in America. You make too much money to qualify for big A affordable housing. So you can't live in subsidized affordable housing. You make too much. And you don't make enough to buy that house that's selling for 400 whatever, or what was the run? 1,100 to 1,400. You don't make enough to, or you're gonna spend 50% of it, or you're gonna drive from Hermiston or Washington. And we know from the western part of the state that if you have a commute that is 90 minutes for more than 18 months, you are extraordinarily likely to quit your job. So does that answer it? It's in that 80 to 120 band is where we focus our efforts.
so we like to say that our medium income here is about $63,000. Is that right? I mean, do you agree with
That's
that?
what I heard tonight.
That's 400.
Yeah, I don't think that's an opinion. I think
That's pretty close.
that's
If it's not exact.
We have striven to get to that.
Okay.
I mean, we started out at 23, and if you want to work, live in Boardman and have a business here, yeah, so, you know, we may have shot ourselves in the foot is, I guess, you know, how that works. But a new teacher, I doubt, makes 63,000 a year.
That's probably right.
I don't know, maybe
Not
even
60
5
yet.
years.
It's in the 50s.
Is it? Okay, good. Well, but I'm just trying,
Huh?
you know, because,
56, and I'm a fourth year teacher.
you know, when Sears used to build houses, you know what I'm saying? They'd send them to you in a,
They came in a kit.
they came in a kit.
Ordered it in a catalog.
Sure.
And
Entry.
I know that when we tried to build the early learning center or whatever we call it over here, it's modular. But the problem was the modular place couldn't get materials. And so it was took way longer. Do you think the production of materials, because we know the labor is a shortage, but if you have materials, you know, maybe you can find 10 guys to put them together. Do you think that's getting better? So if we decide that we want to invest in 10 homes.
Yeah, you should be way more than 10, but keep going.
So how many do you think?
Hundreds.
Well, no, Boardman, I can't do 100.
Your employers, and that was only 6 of them,
Oh,
told me they needed 250.
okay, but
I think you're underestimating how many people need a house here. Affordable house.
Okay, I'm
And how many of
underestimating
them-
how much money the city has that we could put into housing,
Well,
I guess. And I'm thinking if I had.
So,
bought 10
let me step back.
Okay,
I'm not gonna solve your housing problem tonight, and you're not gonna write a big enough check ever to solve it.
that's what I want.
What we do is we bring together different innovators, different funding sources, different employer groups, different stakeholders. We bring new people to the table that weren't there before, so that it's not all on you. There's no check big enough you can write to solve your problem. There just isn't. So you're gonna have to think about this different if you're gonna build hundreds of units in Boardman over the next decade. You just are, or you're just gonna be where you are now. So I hear what you're asking, but I'm not sure it's the right question.
Okay.
Because there's no grant you can make. There's no loan fund you can do that is gonna solve the whole problem by itself. You need help.
So what I think is interesting is, we're kind of unique is that we are getting, the businesses want to be partners with us to help and be able to solve this. When I first moved here, I was 30 years old and I made $18,500 as a first year teacher. And, my house payment was $900. I could not have done that if I hadn't been married. I luckily found somebody that wanted to live with me and help pay the bills. So for me, I've been in this part of, and you know, my first house was a $5,500 trailer that had a hole in the corner. Because that's the only thing I could afford at that time when I worked at Fleetwood and LeGrand. So, I understand getting affordable housing. I understand why my kid lives in my house. So being able to work with these businesses to be able to try to find ways to help my son, other kids' people, other people who live in houses that have multiple families in them, to be able to give them the opportunity that I have luckily been able to get out of, because now my rent isn't half, it's quite a bit less. But I've also been I'm a lot older than when I was a 30-year-old kid. So, I think that's just the neat thing is that we have these investors, these businesses who want to help to be able to give us these other guidelines. So it's just not the sub and ups here, where are we gonna do this?
Yeah.
We got other people to say, give other perspectives and say, well, we don't like this area, or this area might be the best. And be able to get other input to help develop this community that we all live in.
So is this the long and the short is that you'd like for us to say that we would really be happy to help support this project that?
I did have a question though. In other communities that you've been in, Richard raised a very good point about if we bring these houses in, we have, just for example, just on my block, we had 2 houses go up for sale, and before my aunt could even bid on one, a rental company snatched it up. How do other communities prevent that from happening? Do you build like a community where you just say, this is the maximum income that you could earn in order to purchase this home?
Just like everything else, there's no silver bullet. So there's a lot of different ways to approach it. I'll just give you a couple examples, but you should not think this list is exhaustive. There are many ways. So in the city of Bend right now, which has a lot of money, so there are always people that can outbid someone. They work with a local land trust to own the land long-term. And when the stuff above the dirt is owned by the individual or the entity buying the home, but the dirt remains owned by a land trust, that land trust can put covenants on what happens above the dirt, right? So it's a way to control price. It's a way to control the process of how it is sold so that they can prioritize families, employees, whatever. That's one way. Another way you can do it is you can essentially create an ownership structure for whatever is being built, whether it's a house at a time or a lot more. And you can cap that, you can have an income cap on that. So that's just needs tested housing that exists everywhere. In fact, I bet you have supported that before, as a city council probably. That's another way to do it. The ADU example that we showed before, a lot of that is driven by the actual homeowner. And so that's another way that you can build into for sale transfers, income caps, or prioritization of a certain income range or locals versus not, that kind of stuff. There's way more strategies, but that's just a smattering of a few that are happening now.
And just in response to Stephen, I know you're concerned about the rent going up, but he makes a very good point in regard to supply and demand. The more homes we have, the less the rent is gonna be, because the demand isn't gonna be nearly as high, and so that is going to push the rental prices down.
Yeah, the only way that won't be true is if like Boardman Foods hires 7,000 extra people. Or you do.
I was gonna ask, so at one of the previous presentations that you gave us a figure of what it would cost to hire your firm, your nonprofit to help build the system. And I don't remember the exact number, but it wasn't outrageous. Would the city be able to, as a council, I don't know, maybe we don't have the feeling for it. Years ago, when there was a feasibility study for a rec center to build an indoor swimming pool, we ponied up the money for the feasibility study. And you could tell me what it was, 15 grand or 30 grand. But maybe we could have some skin in the game that way. We know that Carla's already on board for doing some review and revisit of planning code and development code and find out what we need to do there to do those kinds of things. We have some land and we have a very interested council. So, are we at a spot where we could think about that, talk about that? Is that something that we wanna?
Yes, from my perspective, this is what we do. This is how we keep our lights on. But what I would recommend is, should you have some sort of an agreement with us or a contract to think through this stuff, two things are probably useful to consider. One would be like, we did this with Newburgh, and I think we're about to do this with Sandium Canyon communities. It's sort of a tiered kind of thing. So you have a lot of off ramps. If you go through like a portion of the work and you're like, we're good, we're good, we figured it out, or we don't like working with these crazy non-profiteers anymore, you can stop and just move on with your normal scheduled lives. But then it just keeps going. So there's different milestones throughout the contract and you get an off ramp at each milestone. I would suggest that. And then number two, I would suggest, don't come into the process with any preconceived notion about like what needs to happen. Because here's part of the flavor of this. You're gonna be trying to attract like the best and brightest folks here to help you solve your challenges, to help build here, to help change policy, to help create new tools. But you don't kind of know what you're gonna get until you ask. And you have to have like some bait, right? To maybe that's funds, maybe that's land, maybe that's the participation of your city or your employers. You don't quite know if you're gonna get that rock star company from Spokane until you ask, right? So you don't get too enamored with like a solution or five until you see what innovators actually do want to come to Boardman.
And there definitely are some good possibilities for us to have some bait.
So I heard her say, did you say that you've heard a presentation from him before?
I went to his January presentation and his February presentation.
So am I just missing these meetings or am I not invited?
No, we specifically said you weren't invited.
I'm sure.
No. Me and Brenda went to the one last month.
In February.
Yeah, I don't think you're allowed to have all of you at one, right? It's not a
Well,
city
not
council.
without an announcement.
So, and that was part of the reason Brenda was brought on initially because of her her push for the housing. And then again, that's why we bring.
And I discovered about the missing middle housing when I went to the League of Oregon Cities in October. And forced the guy at the counter who had one book to give it to me. I said, no, I think I have to have this book. And he was like, but that's my only copy. So,
I've been there with you before.
I have some sway sometimes.
So I would say the council is probably would give permission to Mr. Hammond to pursue.
Do we need to make a motion?
Another question, how much does it cost for you guys just to start looking into this?
That's gonna be in part about what you want us to do. So we have basically, our scopes range from, I don't know,
It was about 10,000.
to get cracking. Yeah, so
Yeah, but we're still in the investigative phase, right? We're not ready to write a check yet, I don't believe, but we're getting close to being able to. I mean, I don't think we have all our answers, but, I think we're definitely in the process of wanting to move forward. Mr. Hammond's already had meetings with the businesses or many of the businesses. So there's that communication piece going there. So I'm not sure what your next step, what you want to do.
I would say the next step is doing that first.
I agree that,
That's what we have to pay him to do the research.
yeah.
Well, I didn't know how far he was along on whether we're ready to write a check for whatever.
I personally think we're ready to move forward. That is my opinion. I mean, the longer we drag our feet. Just the longer opportunities go away, whether it's grants, whether it's some source of funding, whatever.
So, correct, and I had a conversation with Greg Smith last week, who was going to send a text message to Governor Kotek to ask that Boardman be placed on the top of this list if that $377 million fund does get released. So this, making it official, helps us to then go, yes, we really do have a plan, and when it is ready, then he's gonna help us.
And we have a line item in the budget, 20,000 for 2023-2024 for housing. That I read in the capital improvement plan.
Yep.
It might be a different.
We actually have a lot of
housing needs analysis.
Yeah, about.
But
More than just 20,000, we got quite a bit of money we can,
I do have in the budget built in for consultants.
yes.
Okay.
So, one more
He's
question.
got $3.2 million.
So the San Diego Canyon, Tillamook, Ben and stuff, are those people that went with you, or is that who you have to go?
So who's worked with us? Is that the question? Yeah. So the city of Newburgh has been working with us for a full year. We are now working with the 10 cities. Newburgh is one of them in Yamhill County.
Okay.
On a separate project. And then Bend, we did a huge thing with Bend last year that culminated in a big innovation summit. San Diego Canyon, we have not begun work with yet. Thursday is when I do this. With the.
And so, and Ben did none of the work, or is still in process, or?
Oh, they're still working on it. Yeah, so they're creating a revolving loan fund. For instance, they're changing a condo law, which is, I hope you don't have, it's the worst. And then, they're, yeah.
I think they're creating a whole new city over there too. I read that.
But with us, then we did like an innovation summit, and we spun up a couple work groups. That's the other thing, like you get to decide what the work groups are that you care about. Like, we bring our innovators to the table, we bring our process to the table, but fundamentally, you pick what you want to do first and what you want to work on. Every place does it a little bit.
Like having a steering.
Yeah, you'd have like a steering committee for this work. What we do is we don't go build you housing. We change how your process, your community's approach to housing happens. That's what we do.
Do you help us find those innovators?
Yeah, that's in the contract.
So you have a quote from this company?
We do.
and you have some kind of an idea of if you want ramp 1 or ramp 1, 2, and 3?
And again, like collaborating too, several partners have several industries and it's all in us together. Right now, we're definitely going to be leading the way though, for sure.
Are you asking for those other companies to financially help or do some of the legwork? I mean, there's a lot of legwork and all this, so and every company does what they do best?
Yep, we'll get to that.
I can speak for a minute, I'm fine over here, but, I run a childcare center, Families First, you probably know that. We can't find teachers, the school can't find teachers to come in to this growing community. So we can have some fabulous things happen, but if we can't find people that can live here affordably and come in, we're not gonna be able to have the services that we so desire and want to make this a livable community. We've got people driving miles to get here because they either can't find housing and now they can't find affordable housing, as you spoke. So we can keep building things that cost $1,400 a month. That is not going to make the difference to whether we have a workforce. It's not gonna make a difference whether we have people coming here to work at the childcare center or at our schools. So we desperately need some different solutions here. You said number 1 was housing, you said number 2 was childcare. And right now, Brenda is our director of Families First, she knows firsthand. We're losing a teacher to move terms, right? Because of housing and other things. What I'm saying is, we've had people come from Portland here and have trouble being able to pay for rent and have to go back to Portland because they couldn't live here to be a teacher. So these is a real challenge for all of us. And for the workforce themselves, let's talk about manufacturing. Since 1992, when I first moved here, until now, I have been trying to help any way I can with affordable housing. So Brenda and I disagree. I helped passionately get Castle Rock Apartments in here. Probably many people don't like it, but it was desperate for people to have affordable housing. So you need to step up. You might get to the $450,000 home at some point, but there has to be that starting point. I have 2 nieces that are working at the pilot here at Travel Truck Stop. One paying that high rent, can't buy anything else, barely paid for cat food. And the other one is living in Pasco and driving all the way out here to here. They lived with their parents for a while, as you said too, because they could not find affordable housing. I have a nephew that's working at Olin, that has 4 people living in his apartment, so that they can pay the rent. So it's a desperate need. I just want to reiterate, I appreciate you. This is the first time I've got to hear it. It's wonderful. And secondly, before I smoke, I know I put on my speaker, but I just want to say how thankful, absolutely grateful that we are, and I'm talking about me, but I'm talking about other businesses, for all of you. You're all donating your time for the betterment of this community. You're putting in hours, just listening to you tonight, and thought-provoking things that you're talking about, how smart you are. I cannot thank you enough. I really can't. And nobody's telling me that. There's a lot of people who appreciate you. So please remember that. Keep going.
And tell him he can spend however much money he
There you
wants.
go. Just do what Brandon said.
Debbie and I got online, Amazon took over for Sears and Roebuck, and you could buy a house from Amazon and have it shipped to your mailing address.
Well, that was one question. He had on a screen, but it looks like another house on somebody's property. And then there's not very.
ADU, right?
Sorry, yeah, that's called an accessible dwelling unit. That's the technical term. It just means other small house on your property.
So that's part of what you're talking about getting some of the zoning or planning,
Option.
whatever it is, that might say restrict that from now.
That's one thing to do. Again, there's no silver bullet. You gotta do like 30 things.
I think we should let you do this because I have lots of input.
I did want to.
Since you have lots of input, you're willing to spend money.
I did want to add, we also have, Boardman does have a homeowners buyers incentive.
I learned that.
Okay, so
Which is very,
$5,000 to.
yeah, not that common.
Well,
Not if it's their second home, it has to be their primary residence.
And then also it's not enough to like bump even a little bit into that $300,000 and $400,000, even if it's $5,000 or $15,000, which I've seen both numbers now. So
15 from the actual builder and 5 from ECA.
For people to have to pay the high rent and then pay childcare so that they can go to work.
yes.
Also, we'll leave a stack of houses first, right here. In case you want them, grab one. I'll leave more than that. I'll leave even more.
Well, thank you, Nathan. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
This was the first time I came here and I did not need to use tire sheets, so this was.
Or stay an extra night because you couldn't get back on the doors.
Yeah, I couldn't, yeah, it was, thank you, Debbie.
Thank you.
All right, so what we're gonna do is we're running out of time, so we're gonna go through the remaining part of our budget. We're gonna go through.
Well, do we need to do anything official for him or just me saying?
I think we gave a consensus of being able to do that. So we're gonna go through as far as getting all our busy work as far as our action resolutions. And we're gonna end the meeting right there because we're past our time. So we're gonna go on. Well, actually Debbie already had her public comment. She just kind of stood up and shared. It's probably one of the benefits of being in a small community to be able to do that. So we're gonna go right to the next part with Boardman Park and Rec District, report only. I guess that would be Mr. Schreiber.
Just a report.
Oh, you didn't want to say anything?
Well, we're not there.
Okay. So we also had a Boardman Chamber of Commerce report, so if you didn't buy your tickets for the chamber thing, you better buy it.
Because I'm on. He's saying no.
What is he doing, laying in his
He's
bed?
saying, no, babe, I'm good. I don't need to say anything. That's what he's saying.
Okay. So we have that. So if you didn't buy your chamber tickets, you better buy your chamber tickets. If Tori was here, she'd say that, but anyway.
Well, I was gonna say it. The awards banquet is this Friday at 6 p.m. We still have 12 tickets to sell.
Oh, what?
Tickets.
Okay, oh, I bought them too early. Bought them last night.
I had some questions on the resolution number 6, if we're going to try.
We're gonna do this, the 3 resolutions, the A, B, and C. And then we're gonna finish the meeting. So your questions will be able to be addressed there. So we'll go to the action item, resolution 4-2024, acceptance of donated land.
Yeah, the green space.
Yeah, it's on property for 21.6 acres to be donated. The overall appraisal, for all of the land was 1.3 million. So he's donated about $700,000 worth of land.
What does he want in return?
Yeah, the purchase of the, east side.
The one that we approved already today.
Right.
So do you need a motion? All right, then I move to adopt resolution 4-2024, a resolution accepting donated land.
I second.
Do we have a motion and a second? Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Resolution 5-2024, the land purchase.
Okay, so this is on the east side of, Main Street and under that EPA, 10.38 acres. It ends up being about 50,000 an acre or $1.33 a square foot.
I
I
move
move
to,
to approve resolution 5-2024, a resolution purchasing land.
second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
This was approximately what, 600,000?
Which will go directly to the chaparral, improvements, yeah.
Is there any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We have the last one, resolution 6-2024, supplemental budget 2023-2024.
I came in and talked to Brandon about this resolution today, so I think he answered all the questions. I was curious of why, the one said that we would give, refunds in the water. The water department will issue refunds to accounts that are overpaid and is increasing expenses to cover utilities and repairs. And, so I wasn't quite sure why, we would be giving refunds out of the water department.
The reason for us giving refunds is you have multiple options to pay your water bill. A lot of people have the option to send in their payment automatically through their bank. And so whatever they set it to, that's what the bank will send regardless of whether they have a bill or not. And we, as we're transitioning accounts, we updated account numbers because we're going live with the automated water read, which Tony and I did our trainings this morning and yesterday morning. We found some accounts that was the case. The resident just thought they have their bank sending in money and they owe nothing and they keep sending in money and so we contacted all and we're like, hey, we're gonna refund you because you got a huge credit that you're not gonna use up even in 1 year. So that's the reason for those refunds. So just cleaning up those accounts and getting them all back to kind of paying what they owe, staying closer to that and it's starting to increase.
So on the same line there, the increasing expenses, is that raising our water bills?
No.
Yeah, so what's the increase? Says over, you're just talking, water department issue funds and is increasing expenses to cover utilities.
Oh, no, covering the utilities, what I talked about is, when our 1 million gallon reservoir starts to get filled, our pumps run off of electricity. So electricity is the utility. Those are the, utilities that are gonna be increasing.
So- Yeah, so the city's gonna pay more
Yes.
for that, but they're not going out and charging, raising our water rate.
Correct, we are not raising water rates, that would have to come to the council. And, if we were to be raising water rates for this next fiscal year, you'd be hearing about it now, so there are no anticipated increases in water rates for this next fiscal year.
Nope, I'll clear those out for them. Thank you.
I had a question about the 20,000 for replacing the flooring and stuff and paint. Do you really think you can do that for 20,000?
No, I already have some in the budget,
Oh, okay.
but we need more and then to have a cushion for anything else that we may have to repair.
Okay, because I'm thinking,
Yeah.
you're only gonna carpet this room. Got it. Oh, okay, I'm good.
And I'd like to move to adopt resolution 6-134, a resolution to adopt supplemental city budget fiscal year 2023-2024.
I second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion or questions about this motion? Or this resolution? All in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We're gonna skip the rest and I'm gonna adjourn this meeting.
Hey, could we sign